Hey guys, my name is Dr. Nkwacha again. I am here in Orlando, Florida. I am moving around. I'm exploring all the nice things that I'm seeing, how people are leveraging information and moving down here to the United States in more than one way. And this afternoon, I have the pleasure of talking to this beautiful lady. Her name is Chisunta, and I will let her to do the honors of telling her story. Finally get into what schools did you get into, which ones did you get rejected from, and what was your outlook to that?
I got a lot of rejections. I think I got rejected almost all my 20 schools on my common app, and then the ones on the outside which I applied to. I got into like Agnes Scott, but they gave me $5,000 and left with a huge amount of money to pay. My name is Mirriam Chikwamu. Those are my official government names, but I haven't been called Mirriam since I was in preschool, so I go by Chisunta in the United States. I come from a very small town in Kabwe, in Zambia, called Kabwe, but I call my neighborhood this town on its own because despite being in Kabwe, we were like also secluded, just a different area called Chimani, and not so many people make it out of there. So it's a pleasure to be here, to have made it out and be one of those people.
Wonderful. Let us do it. So, I mean, before you came to the United States, when was the earliest time that it dropped in your mind that you want to be in the United States?
Okay, so I went to a Catholic boarding school, girls boarding school called Fatima Girls Secondary School in Dola Copper Belt. And while I was there, I had a very life-giving experience, holistic formation. And I was the highest in grade 9 because we have national exams. And so I was the highest on the Copper Belt as well. And someone told my headmistress about a program called Yale Young African Scholars Program. And I remember going to her office. She was having us apply because we had no internet access while we were in boarding school. We're not allowed to carry phones. And even if we use computers, we're using Excel or Word, never internet. So like I remember going to her office at like 19 hours, that's like 7 p.m. in the US, and we would have to apply, do these essays. I never knew about writing essays or anything. And at that time for me, I was just doing it because I was the highest, with the other person was the second highest and the third highest out of those exams. And the application process took long, and I was eventually accepted to the program. It was fully funded, and I went to Zimbabwe. And there I learned about the SATs for the first time, something very foreign. I saw students from across Africa with a lot of passions, a lot of motivation, something I'd never seen before. And most of these students came from international schools. So international schools are like schools in Africa. I don't know about other continents, but mostly like in Southern Africa, they have curriculums from the UK or from the US. They don't use the national curriculum that the country has. And so they were in a different level of learning, different type of exposure. This was my first time. And from that experience, I knew I wanted to go to Yale. It wasn't any other school in the US, it was just Yale University.
It was Yale University because of that program.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about your journey to Yale. Did you eventually get to Yale?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, so what happened?
I mean, so after that, this was 2016. I was in grade 10 when I went for this program in August. And I went back to school. I told my headmistress, and it was a dream of mine. I remember my father and he was going for one of his work thing, and my mom told me, because I like eating a lot, it's our team. I was like, carry her as your plus one, she'll be Mrs. Chikwamu for today. And I told my father that I want to do SATs. Can you save money for me? I was in grade 11 at that time, and I knew I could only do the SATs after I had completed grade 12. So this was 2017. So I had that conversation with my father. And then at the time I finished high school, I decided to start looking for programs. But before that, in 2017, actually, there was a girl from my school who has a huge name in our country. She went to Harvard. And she came from Fatima Girls, and she finished high school in 2013, but I went to Fatima Girls in 2014. And so she came, and my professor used to talk about her. Oh, she went to Harvard, she did this and that. And I was like, I'm also going to go to Yale. If she went to Harvard, I can go to Yale. And she visited me with the SAT program. And I was like, okay, I got there. And I was like, immediately I'm done with high school, I'm going to go to this program and try to go to Yale.
Okay. So, did you go to the SAT program now?
Oh, wow. This is a very interesting story.
Okay.
So I remember, I told my father to save money for me. He did not. I mean, I told him, like, my parents, I'm not bragging or saying anything. I've grown up as that child in my family who doesn't give my parents any problems.
Yeah.
And so they never worried about me. I'll get my grades from high school and they wouldn't even check them. Like, shout at me. Sometimes in high school, I tell myself, like, maybe I should fail so that they could actually talk to me.
Right.
And so my dad, I'll tell him I want to do this. He'll just be like, she'll be fine, because she's always on top of her things. And I tried my best to never contribute to my parents having to think about me. So he hadn't saved money. And this was January 2019, and one of my cousins and I had already planned to go together, but she managed to go. So there was no money at home because the program was very expensive. At that time, it was actually on promotion. It was like 10,000 kwacha. I don't know about now because the dollar is currently at $1 to 25 kwacha today. But back then it was like 10,000 kwacha, and that was a lot of money. And my mom is a teacher, and so she couldn't afford that, and my dad wasn't currently working. But my mom said she had saved up some money. And so, but that money was used to help my brother out, so there was no money at all. So instead, what happened was I was planting beans. I was planting beans in January, and I could see on WhatsApp my friends were at this SAT program, they were writing. And then I remember, because where I live at the farm in Lusaka now, because I'm no longer living in Kabwe, I live in Lusaka, 10 miles out of the city, which is technically in Central Province. So it's a farming area. And so at our house, we had finished planting all around, and we asked for a portion at my auntie's house. So we went to her house, and I was planting beans. I was wearing shorts, like I played football, soccer in the US, and I had beans in my pockets. I was so dirty. I sat down on these big, like, things that you used to plant beans in, and I looked at the plane passing by, and I saw my friends doing the SATs, and I asked myself, is this how my life is going to be? I'm supposed to be doing SATs right now, but there isn't money at all, and there's nothing. I looked at my mom, she was planting beans, she was telling me, let's plant the beans, let's plant the beans. And tears just rolled down from me, and I didn't think I would go there. And that was January
of 2019.
Of 2019.
So what was your break point?
I don't know if I could say there was a break point, because I've been in boarding school since I was in grade 6, and I've been away from home. So like I was never disturbed by anything that was going on at home. They would never tell me if there were problems at home. But now, just having stayed at home for like from November 2018 to like end February, because I went to the SAT program in February, I experienced everything at once. And so for me, at that point, I was just looking for a way out. Like, I just need something, but this is my goal. This is where I want to go to Yale. Yale was the goal at that point. And my mom saw how much passion I would always talk about it. I'm like, oh, today my friends wrote this. I don't know what they're doing. I would always talk about it. And she would always, she saw how passionate I was. And so she went and borrowed money. She got a loan and she paid. But for me, it wasn't easy, because it wasn't just about the SAT, because as I mentioned earlier, I live 10 miles outside Lusaka city, and we're technically in Central Province, but because you can't really see the lines on the map, it's just like I live in Lusaka. And so driving from there to the SAT program with traffic and all the construction that was going on would take you like 6 hours from where I live, like because of traffic.
Okay.
But in a good day when there's no traffic, it's like an hour 30 minutes to drive to the SAT program. And my mom couldn't afford to take me every day from home to go there. So it wasn't just about securing the money for the program, but it was also securing money for where I was going to live and food, and because I had to live close to the place.
Right.
And so that's why my going there took a bit longer. So my mom had to find good housing for me. As the only girl child, she had to ensure I was safe in a place where she could trust and call the owner like, oh, how's she doing? And so that took a bit longer, and eventually I got there.
Okay. Wow. So your mom did all of this sacrifice. So how did you scale within the program? How long did it take you to study for the SAT take the test and all that?
So I don't know about now, but the way the SAT, there's a sitting in March, there's a sitting in May, there's a sitting in June, or August, and sitting in June, sitting in October and in December. So by the time I went, I was already late. I practically started in March, so I could not sit in March. And there were people sitting in March just for the sake of mock. And by the way, the SAT isn't cheap. I think by then it was like $75. I'm not exactly sure on the price, but converting it into your currency, that's a lot of money. Not everyone can afford to pay. So people are sitting as a mock exam just to like try it out. And so for me, the goal was to sit in May for that program. So I started in March. I was going to sit in May, but I ended up sitting in May. I personally think I did very well on the first one, but it's curved, so the score wasn't matching up to what I got, So coming from a background in high school, where a straight A student, you're the best in your class, and this was the first time I experienced failure in my life, something I would deem as failure, and it was very new territory for me. I wasn't the best at the college prep I was at. For me, growing up, I never thought about being the best because I was the best. So I was always like, oh guys, it just happens. But it's because you're in that position, you don't really know how it feels to not be in a position when you're not the best. And so it was the first time I experienced failure, not because I wasn't the best, but because I didn't do what the ideal was, as usually I would. So I ended up sitting in May, I started in August, and so in October, I didn't want to, but my friend convinced me, and I had to sit in December as well.
Okay, so by the December, did you have the score you wanted to have?
Not an ideal score. I mean, I can say my city score my last one was 1380 or 1390. I'm not, somewhere in those ranges. I can't really, because it's been a while, almost 4 years. But it's not a score that will get you to Yale. I mean, it's not a score that will get you to Harvard. I don't even think it's a score that would get you to like top 50 schools, especially coming from Africa. They expect the SATs are something that make us stand out because they don't know how different, because my school isn't a recognized school, it's not a technical school, it's not a national school. And so when you put it in the Common App, it doesn't pop out. You have to say other and then type your school. So they can see you are the best at your school, you had good grades, but they can't weigh you on.
Weight.
So the SAT is something that's supposed to make you stand out, but mine did not, I suppose.
Okay. So coming from that place where you were always been the best, and then all of a sudden you're competing with the rest of the world and seeing that, there's the rest of the world who are also doing well. How did you navigate your application process into school?
To be honest, I would say that's, looking back, is something that I actually made a mistake in. That's the biggest mistake I ever made, because coming from a Catholic girls' school, I say my school was very idealistic in a way that we never competed in high school. You are your sister's keeper. It was very community based. Even if you are number one, no one was competing to be number one. No one was competing to get higher than the other. It was just like, okay, let's do better. If someone does better than you, you celebrate them. That's the way I was raised. And so going into an environment where I had to compete, it was a very new territory for me. I didn't know how to compete. And so I often downplayed my potential, my skills, and I would let people tell me lies, lie to me, and not that I knew they were lies, I just trusted people to be about community and not be out for what's best for them.
Okay.
I mean, for me, I would say there's healthy competition and unhealthy competition.
Right.
But there was definitely healthy competition around me, knowing that you are competing for the same sports.
Okay.
In college, same financial aids, and so I didn't navigate it as well enough as I should have. I should have put myself out there. I've been told so many times I have potential. The people that tell me, I just needed to figure out how to sell it, but I did not know how to, and that was my first mistake.
Okay, so now let's backtrack a little bit. You're coming from a place where you had challenges financially to get into this program. How did you navigate paying for the schools? How many schools did you apply to? What was your application process like?
So when it comes to applying to school, I applied to more than 20 schools, and I did my best to apply to the schools that gave fee waivers. So you had to send emails, application fee waivers, they're called. You have to send an email to the school and ask them and tell them, I can't afford to pay this. Can you let me apply? And then they'll send you a fee waiver. You can enter a code. It's basically a code that you can enter in the common app, and it will waive that fee for you. But there are certain schools that I wanted to apply to, like Michigan State University, and there are many other, I don't know about other state schools that might offer fee waivers, but they don't offer fee waivers at all. So you have to pay with no compromise. And at that time it was $75. And my mom was just like, I can't pay $75 for something that's not assured. And so that definitely deterred me from applying to certain schools because of the application fees, but it's definitely doable. There's so many schools out there with great programs and great financial aid that would tell you you can apply without paying.
Okay. Now again, was the SAT free, or how did you navigate the costs for the SAT for you?
I mean, the SAT wasn't free at all, and so I would definitely say I'm also coming from a point of privilege where my mom was able to save or find a place to borrow and like pay the money, because it wasn't all the time in those 3 times that I wrote the SATs, because I also wrote subject tests, which are no longer there at all, because even the SAT is being phased out. Schools are going test optional. There's so many schools that you can apply to without writing the SATs. But back then, subject tests were a thing where you have to write either physics only, mathematics or chemistry to show like you're good in something. And so I also had to pay for those, which I did not do well in at all. And I also had to pay for the prep for them. The course, navigating the course, my mom tried her best to find money wherever she could. And I remember having a conversation with my father for the subject test. I'm like, if you borrow this money to pay for me, I'm sure you'd never have to pay anything in college for me again. This is the last time. So that was like a way to sell it and tell my parents to go out there. But I didn't work, because back home it's hard to find a job. I mean, like a good paying job. So I didn't work. The best I could do is like help my mom clean the house, help in the garden, help in the farm. That's the best thing that I could have done. But the cost wise, there were times when like I remember struggling a lot with like food. Like they send me a constant amount of money for food, but during that time there was high inflation, and so the food basket got very expensive. So I used to struggle a lot. There were days I ate once only and had to stay at that place to study the whole day. It wasn't easy, but my parents definitely helped. But for people out there, me who's come here in this position, I feel like there's so many organizations. I feel like Education USA, you just have to apply to the program and they help you with the books. They pay for your SATs. They help you with applications. They also help you pay for the applications. So all you have to do is apply and put yourself out there and tell them that this is what I want to do.
So did you use the Education USA?
I was not aware of it. I had no idea. I mean, like, finding out about this particular program was through the girl who came to my school. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known. There's so many other programs out there right now. In Zambia, in particular, there's Our Moon. You have to apply to them. They help with everything. Education USA, because it's at the embassy. There's one of my friends at my school currently I'm at also does a free program. It's called Project 90, something like that. They want to get like 90 Africans into the US before the end of a certain period, and it's completely free. So there are people out there who are helping people. You don't have to be by yourself.
Okay, now so some of these resources we're going to put down in the link in the description so that you can see you're not the only one. Again, if you have questions, put them down in the comments. There are people, a lot of people who are looking for these resources. Just know that you're not by yourself, all right? If our friends can do it, there's a lot of people that you don't realize that they can do stuff, all right? You yourself can do things. So don't be left alone. Don't feel like you're all by yourself. We'll put the links in the description. Let me know your questions in the comments, ways that you have found it difficult to navigate. All right, so eventually you took the SATs. You applied to 20 schools. What formed your decision into what school and what major? How did you navigate that process to be here in the US?
First and foremost, for me, it was going to a school that would give me full financial aid, because it was announced that my parents are barely affording $75 to apply to schools. You are not going to afford $5,000, $10,000, $25,000. And so I applied to schools that could give me that. And so when searching for schools, one of the resources I used the most was Reddit. So right now I like saying my big brothers and sisters on Reddit, because I just go and ask like, oh, what schools give full financial aid? And there's this one person on Reddit who was like, send me your email, I'll send you a spreadsheet of schools. And so I got a spreadsheet of schools across the US. But because you're outside, you don't know what these schools look like, you don't know location wise, you just go on the internet, you see nice pictures and like, okay, they give full financial aid, it looks nice, I'll apply to this school. And so, but the basis was financial aid. And so I applied to all the Ivies except Cornell and Columbia and UPenn. Oh no, I applied to Cornell except UPenn and Columbia, because they're going to give full financial aid. I applied to other top schools as well, like Northwestern. I can't even remember the list, but it was very expansive. And
all right, really get into what schools did you get into? Which ones did you get rejected from? And what was your outlook to that?
I got a lot of rejections. I think I got rejected almost all my 20 schools on my common app, and then the ones on the outside which I applied to. I got into like Agnes Scott, but they gave me $35,000 and left with a huge amount of money to pay. And I knew it was definitely a non-starter. So coming from a girls' school, I really wanted to go to another women's college, because I was passionate about women empowerment. And so I applied to like most of the 7 sister colleges are called in the US, the Smith. We have I can't remember all of them right now, but one of the schools I really wanted to go to was Barnard in New York. It's part of Columbia, and that rejection really hit. I remember going to knock on my mom's door and telling her they rejected me. She's like, it's okay, we'll try other schools. And so so I got rejected to most of them. The only one that I remember getting into is Agnes Scott.
Agnes Scott, and then they gave you $35,000 scholarship.
Yes.
And there was a big balance.
A very huge balance. I think I had to pay because I think the cost of attendance then was like 60 something thousand. So like 59 point, but it was basically 60,000. So I had to pay the remaining out of the 35,000, and I knew I wasn't going there.
Okay, so what's changed? How did you redirect and refocus?
I know, this is very interesting to me as well, looking back, because my goal, I finished high school when I was 18. And in the US, they also finish when they're 18, but they're immediately going into college because they already gotten into college. But for me, I had to write the SATs in 2019 and do that whole process. But I told myself that I'm going to school in 2020. I was like, in the fall of 2020, I'm going to the US. It doesn't matter where, but I'll be there.
Right.
And so by the time all those decisions came out, this is like March, because Ivy Day is when most of the Ivies release their decisions. Because I had done early decision, I was so hopeful, was communicating with the president of Yale University. I had so much confidence, and I didn't get into the school. And so I had to apply a regular decision, because there are 2 streams of applications. There's what they call early decision. You just apply to one school, and it's legally binding. If you do get into that school, you have to go to the school, and you have to drop all the other schools, and you can't apply to others. If you apply to others, they'll blacklist you, or it's just not what happens. And then there's early decision 2, where after you don't get into your early decision 1 school, you can apply to early decision 2. And then after that, because you get your decisions faster, you apply by November, the decision comes out in December, because the application starts in August. So I had to shift to regular decision, where the deadlines are January, or 1st January, 15th January. Then the decisions start coming out end February. March is the most decision month, and end March usually is what they call Ivy Day. The big schools release all their decisions, and by that time the game is usually done. But then what saved me, that these schools that they have rolling decisions. meaning they send out decisions
Us.
throughout the year. You can apply, and it's just that you either enter the fall or the spring. So I shifted my my direction to what they call HBCUs, which are historically black colleges and universities. And like the people from my program would just send me schools, try this school, try that school. I didn't know about them. I looked them up. So I applied to Xavier University of Louisiana. I think I would have gone there if I put in much time and effort, but I didn't. I don't know what just happened with that application. And so I remember my headmistress was in the US in October of 2019. And she visited Catholic universities because she was a Dominican sister. And so she got leaflets and she came and gave them to me in 2019. So I was looking at this particular school. I was like, my mom and I looked at the programs. We're like, I don't think, what are you going to study at this school? Probably chefing. And African parents, it was me and my mom were laughing about this. But when all came, one thing I would advise people to do is reach out to people. Don't be shy. Send those emails, send those messages. Because I used to bug people, not bug them in a bad way, because I've learned to be professional after being a college student. But send those emails, reach out for information. So I used to do that. I sent out to all these colleges that I'm like, oh, you have an honors program, how much do you give, what's the total cost of attendance, how much will I have to pay? So I talked to these Dominican colleges and they gave me what they were about. But this particular college my mom and I were laughing at, there was no response for from starting 2019 to 2020 March, dead silence. So by the time my decision, I was like, I need to be serious. So sent emails and everything until she finally responded at the admissions counselor, and we started conversing. She's like, send your application right now. You're actually accepted right now. You just need to send an application to formalize this. And then, but I didn't know what the financial aid process was at that school, how much they were going to give me. I just knew they had me because my headmistress spoke highly about me when she was there. And so I sent my application on, I think, Saturday night. Monday morning, I was accepted. They even sent me a FedEx with an acceptance the way US students get. Usually they don't send. I don't know exactly if you're in a different continent, but I got that hard copy acceptance, And I was so happy, my scholarship package and everything.
Oh, they gave you a scholarship?
They gave me a scholarship.
How much? Was it full?
No.
Okay.
It wasn't a full scholarship, not even close to full. And so this is where it all began. That's where my journey all began.
Okay, so how did you accept the school? Did you come to the school?
So at that point, because it's very religious, and I'm Catholic. I come from a very Catholic family, and I went to a Catholic high school. I was a head girl and things like that. At this point, they were just set out to help me. They just wanted me to come to school. And so they were like, okay, because I didn't live on campus my first year. My first year of college, I didn't live on campus. They were like, okay, we're going to secure funds for you for accommodation. And so they paid the host family to host me for a whole year. But the next 3 years were never certain. No one knew what I was going to be doing the next 2 years. But
okay, so sorry for cutting you in, but what school is this? How much was it that?
It's a very small school in Connecticut called Albertus Magnus College. It's actually, it's a very funny story. It's down the road from Yale University,
Oh,
yeah. Okay. I wanted to go to Yale, ended up going right next to Yale, but not Yale at all. So they gave me, how much was that? They gave me the highest scholarships in everything. So they gave me 22,000 for the honors program. They gave me some additional, in total, I think it used to, because the most that an international student could get there is $30,000.
Okay.
But then the cost of attendance, really, when they write on those colleges, they add things like health insurance, they add personal expenses, which we don't even go any close to. There'll be $3,000 for books and things. No, I don't know any student who's using $3,000 on books and eating and other things. But so when you take that amount away for my tuition, and like I wasn't living on campus, so I had to pay a balance of like $4,000-5,000 a year in my first year.
In your first year?
Yeah, because
Okay.
I wasn't living on campus, I wasn't eating on campus. I just had to, because in my first year she secured a lot for me. Health insurance was paid, accommodation was paid, so the balance was really small, and I didn't know about this at all until I came to the US and I was told I had to pay $5,000 for the whole year. And I remember crying that I wasn't going to be able to register for the spring of 2021 because my mom and my dad, it was a pandemic. There was no way, and the dollar exchange rate was terrible. There was no way they were going to pay that.
Okay, so what did you do? How did you navigate that? Did you change focus, or did you move to a different college? What did you do?
I worked like there was no other time to work.
Okay.
So I worked a lot on campus, and one thing that I did, oh my god, the last 2 years have been interesting. I applied to more than 100 scholarships, you know. I used to apply for so many scholarships. Every day I was doing scholarship applications, like outside scholarship applications, emailing them, have you given out the decision for the scholarship? And in the first 50 I applied to, I got none. The next 50 I got none as well. And so like these were usually national scholarships, so I redirected my focus to more local scholarships, state scholarships, county scholarships, because that reduced your competition pool. Because from competing with like millions of people, you go to like maybe a couple 100,000 or less. Like for the town, you go to like maybe 500 students applying for that particular scholarship. So I ended up getting some outside scholarships, but I worked every single time. I was always working. Any single money I got, I remember looking at my sweatpants when I first came to the US, they were finishing. I'm like, am I never going to buy clothes? Because even if I got $20 from anyone who just gave me $20, I'll go and pay it to school, because I didn't want to not register for my classes for the next semester. So I just changed my focus to just going and getting it, you know. And so by the time the spring came, I registered, won a scholarship in the spring semester. That helped me pay off the balance for the spring. And the summer came and I was looking for jobs for over the summer, because as a freshman, my old school didn't know a lot about international students, because they didn't have a huge international student pool. It's a very small school. And so I had to work on campus during the semester due to immigration rules and things like that. So I was teaching swimming practice to kids because I can swim. I was on the swim team. That's why I primarily stayed on the swim team. And I was also, my school, because there were nuns, they were set out to help me. They created a position for me at their sister school where I used to walk kids over the summer. It was basically like, they called it glorified babysitting, because it was at the school. And then the school was the one paying me. So even though I was working at the sister school, the income was from the school, was like an internship which they created. And so I stayed legal, doing all my work with them. And I worked a lot, a whole lot, and it wasn't an easy thing, but the goal was just to keep doing school. So in the next coming year, I applied to be an RA, and that's how my second year as a sophomore was solidified, because I got the job as an RA. I'd never lived on campus, and then I was going to be a resident assistant. You get free housing, which is free room and board, housing and food, and the scholarship was still the same. Nothing changed. The only thing that changed was that because in my previous year, I was living with the host family and they had paid for me. In the next year, if I stayed with them, I had to pay for myself. So imagine I had to pay school balance and host family. But because I got that position, I didn't have to worry about accommodation, but I was still worrying about paying for the school. But after the money I made over the summer, I was able to give myself a bigger break and like not work as hard, because I had paid off my 4th semester. I remember paying off money, and I was so proud of myself. Like in the last 2 years, I probably paid $20,000 by myself. My parents never used to send me money at that particular point, but my mom sometimes would try. She'd work so hard. I know the money she sent was a lot from back home, but she'd send, and usually it would just be so little because of the exchange rate, and it would just be like dropping a spoon in an ocean. So,
right.
yeah.
I mean, that's an interesting perspective that you come from. So now, as you're talking, I'm thinking, how did you balance working that much with studying as a student?
I would definitely tell you that one thing I can say, that two sides of the US. I always say this jokingly, but I mean, my school wasn't rigorous at all. Like, I mean, other people, I'm not saying this from a point like, oh, it was easy and thing, but the amount of rigor that I'm experiencing now at the different schools is completely different. Like, I still work 20 hours a week, and this semester I was like, maybe I shouldn't work 20 hours a week because the course load is crazy. But at my old school, the course load was there, but I feel like it was
manageable.
It was manageable. I feel like my particular circumstance allowed it.
Okay.
To be honest, because if I was at any other school working that much, I don't think it would have been easy to balance. There were times when I was so tired, I would come back, I would have to take shifts either ways.
Okay.
But like, I'd still need to do it, but it wasn't too bad.
Okay. So what prompted you move into a different college?
Yeah, so I saw myself working so hard, and what I was getting out wasn't matching what I was putting in. And so my career and academic goals, because I have amazing friends. One thing I can talk about is the circle of friends that surround me are all ambitious people. We're talking about people who are board of trustees, people who are working for Amazon. Like, we came from a similar struggle, but they've reached new heights. So being surrounded by these people, I would often feel so small. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Like, we're all in the US, but what's so different? And so through that, I'll tell myself, like, I need to keep striving. Like, in the last 2 years, I never got an internship that was towards my career. And so I wanted academic rigor. I wanted to be in an environment that pushed me towards my career. And so that's how I started looking into schools.
Okay. So what were you studying at your initial college?
I was studying mathematics.
You're studying mathematics. So you moved to, what college did you move to right now?
I'm at Whitman College.
Studying what now?
Mathematics and statistics.
Mathematics and statistics. So you moved to Whitman. How did you do that transition?
Transferring is definitely not the easiest thing for an international student. It's probably the hardest thing, because at this point, imagine coming to the US is hard because you have to look for schools that give financial aid. Transferring is even worse because the pool of schools that give financial aid to international transfer students becomes smaller, and the acceptance rates become smaller because you're looking at schools that are accepting 20 people out of 5,000 applicants, as opposed to undergraduate where you have, like, out of hundreds of thousands, maybe they're getting 1,000 something. Better off. But this was harder. I had to make so many calls, learn a lot about applications that I hadn't known before when I came here, and taking some of the lessons I learned about selling myself from my previous experience to this particular transfer application. I applied to so many schools. The Ivies, applied to Yale again. I wanted to go to Yale, but still didn't get in. But it didn't hurt me as much as it hurt me before.
Okay.
Because there's so much growth and so much learning.
All right. So now in your new college, how do you find your new college, and how have you adjusted from the previous college you were in?
It wasn't easy because I just moved to this college this year in January, and I went to a completely different place because I never even knew I wanted to study mathematics coming to the US. I thought I wanted to do engineering or maybe find myself something medical adjacent, because my mom always told me, you can't be a doctor, you're too rough. So I was like, okay. I found myself in mathematics, but when I went to this school, I found myself taking computer science classes because my old school didn't have any of these things. And I was so interested. I'm like, this is my type of thing. And then I remember talking to the department chair at my new school, asking her, I was always asking questions. I was finding out the best resources available to you. I went to ask her, I'm like, is it possible to do computer science in the next 2 years and another major? She was like, you're very behind, because they made me I'm retaking so many classes.
Okay.
It's like the last 2 years I was an academic break. It's like I was working and then I was on vacation for school. So like you're so behind, you have to stay for an extra year because the computer science major, these are the requirements, and you have to take so many hard classes together. So I don't think it's possible. I went out, sat in this place called Ankney at Whitman. It's a green place, and I cried so much by myself. People are moving, but no one stopped to say, "What's wrong with you?" I was crying, and I put on my AirPods, and one of my very good friends gave me this song called "Painting Pictures of Egypt," and I was listening to it because it talks about like the old shoes, the shoes that you wore a long time ago. You can't fit them now because you've grown. And so that was something that comforted me and made me know that in the last 2 years, it was very hard. I'm here to make most of the opportunities, even though this feels like a roadblock. It's a beginning of something great.
Okay. And so, but you were funded. You have a full scholarship for this current college.
Yes, I'm on a 100% scholarship, something that's very rare for international transfer students. Because I applied twice to transfer. So I applied to transfer last fall. I was supposed to start in the fall of 2021, but many schools were listed me as opposed to my undergraduate where I had rejection. This time it was just waitlist, and I did know definitely, and most of it had to do with like aid, because schools will be like, it's also a business at the end of the day. They're like, this person costs more to bring in as compared to this other person who can, like, okay, we can pay a certain amount. So be like, okay, maybe they're like, okay, we'll go that way and see what we can pick. So Whitman listed me first. Yeah. But then eventually when I applied to transfer for next spring, they accepted me.
Okay. So you didn't have the financial pressures anymore?
Not at all. It's been such a different year. Like, I still go to the dining hall these days and sit, because in my first year, I never, you know how people come to the US, my journey is so different. How, like, look, I was talking to my friends like this freshman 15. I never had freshman 15 because I never ate from the dining hall, you know? And so it was just such a different experience. Right now, I go and spend money in the dining hall, which the school has put on my card, which I don't have to pay for. It's just so surreal. Sometimes I sit down and like I look at the financial aid applied on my portal. I'm like this semester it was so different because I keep applying for things. I applied for scholarship again this year because this is a very important thing that people need to know. Even though you're on 100% scholarship, you still have to pay something, but it's not pressure because it's taxes. So the US government would tax your scholarship. So that two portions of your aid. There's a part of the aid that's taxed and one that's untaxed. So the one that pays for your tuition isn't taxed. And the one that doesn't pay for your tuition, the one that pays for room and board, that's like your room and your food, is taxed. And so even if you're on 100% aid, the US government will say, this is how much we have to take from you. And so the schools usually pay the government, and then you have to pay the school the balance. Back. Yeah. And so, but it's not too much pressure because the school knows like, it's just tax. Yes. It's not like anything else. But there are certain schools, another interesting fact, that cover that tax for you as well. Right. And so some people don't have to pay. Other schools offer you loans and you cover those taxes with the loans the school provides, which you pay after school. And so you don't have the pressure of worrying about that. So my school in particular, we have to pay tax. So even if I have to pay that $960, it's something that I can work in a month or like 3 weeks and I'll be able to pay it off and I'll be fine. But I applied for a scholarship because I told myself in the next 2 years I'm not paying for anything. So I got a scholarship which covered my taxes this semester and my account balance was 0 and I didn't have to remove anything. Right.
Wow. I mean, that's a very different and unique perspective. So cool. Let's see. So what are your learning points? I mean, you've come a long way in the past 2 to 3 years. What are your learning points that you have picked up along the way that you can tell? You're from Kawe, right?
Yes.
That you can tell a girl from Kawe who probably will see this video, or from any other part of Zambia or any part of the world, that wants to go to Yale or go this journey. What can they learn from you?
For me, my biggest thing is determination. My mom always told me that she admired my determination. I never knew what that meant.
Right.
But throughout this entire journey, what has been constant for me is determination. That's why I feel like I'm a bit scared to set goals and say I want to do this, because I know when I say I'm going to do this, I'll do it. I said I'm going to go to school in the fall of 2020. I was going to be in the US, and I made sure that happened in one way or another. And when I was at my old school, I was like, this is not the way my life is supposed to pan out. This is not what I think. I was like, I need to get out of this situation, and I got out of it. So, I mean, it's not one of those motivation speeches where they just believe in yourself. It's hard. You cry many days, but when you know where you want to get, you get there no matter what.
That's right.
You do it.
All right. Well, that is an interesting conversation. Let us know your questions, your comments, your thoughts in the comments. If anyone wants to reach you on social media, how can people get to you?
I mean, I'm on Instagram, but my account is private. But you can also reach me on LinkedIn. I mean, maybe this coming year I'll share more of my story. But you can always just reach out to me via like LinkedIn, because that's the most open platform that you can, because my Instagram is private.
Okay. What's your LinkedIn name then?
Chisunta Mirriam Chikwamu.
All right. So I'm going to put in her LinkedIn, the link in the comments. Let me know your questions, your thoughts, your reactions to this whole conversation. This is a way interesting time. I have enjoyed myself. I have got to know Chisunta. I actually just met her today. And then in so short a time, I've known a whole lot about her. So it was my very pleasure to talk to you. And I'm hoping that God will continue to push you forward, that your determination through God, again, remember that a lot of the things we do are in scriptures. We open out, some people don't even read their Bibles, you know, some people even leave out the Bible even without reading it. It's in scriptures. Through God, you can get to where you want to get to. And God backs determination, God backed work. You will get to the end of where you want to get to. It was very nice to meet you all. Follow us on our social media handles, and I will see you another time. All right, so as we close this session together with Chisunta in this year 2024, we're not going to be sitting around. So what do we say together 2024? Just do it. All right, have a blessed day.